Awesome training today. Took a really deep dive into why we ask questions, what questions do, and not just any questions, right? We don't want to talk about how's the weather and do your kids live close by and how long have you lived in Chicago, right? Those types of questions are not working anymore, especially when every other salesperson that people talk to are asking those same boring, predictable questions. So what can you do to be different and create rapport and value that nobody else in the industry is doing? I'm going to teach you, and I'll post it on YouTube this afternoon.
Okay, so I wanted to just give you like a deeper understanding and of what questions actually do and why the questions that are in the script are in there. And this can be fully conversational. This does not have to be me just presenting to you guys. So anything that you hear that is interesting or you want to stop me, we want to talk about it, and then we can relate it to the script as we go through it. I put together a document that we're going to go through, and hopefully it's large enough for you guys to see it. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Mila, I know you're on the call. Is that big enough?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks.
Awesome. Okay. So we're going to talk about like what do questions actually do? Like, why are we even asking all of these questions in the script? What is the point? Feels like I'm an interrogator. I don't really understand the direction that I'm going. And when you feel out of control like that, and you don't really like have a really deep understanding of why you're even asking them, it doesn't have the same benefit. So first one here, like just to have a general understanding, right? Questions, they help you like gather, analyze, and diagnose. They help uncover what your customers are, their current situation is, right? How they even got there in the first place, how they feel about their situation, and if they even want to make a change in the first place, right? So I'm going to highlight this because I just want to sit here for a moment before we move on. Nope, that's not what I wanted to do. Where's my highlight? Here we go. Okay. So in the first part, when we're talking about, their situation, right? These are situational questions. Do you currently have something in place? Have you ever had it before? How long have you been without? And in these questions, we're trying to figure out if this is even something that they are motivated to want to make a change, right? Because I have plenty of people that I get on the phone with where I'm starting these situation questions and they're really not even like wanting anything, right? So I can kind of like, before I even get into who we are and what we do, we have to identify if this person even wants insurance. And the one big thing that I think some people are missing is how do they feel about their current situation? And some of the things that you can't really script that I say a lot, and maybe I can find a way to put it in there, is okay, so you currently don't have any insurance. Maybe you used to have it with a job. This is when we're doing the recap. You maybe used to have it with a job, so you've been without for a couple of years. It's probably cost you maybe a little bit of stress, right? Is that right? And when you downplay it, they will automatically tell you that it's way more than what it is. No, it's caused me a lot of stress. Or even if they've been researching, right? Well, what have you found? God, there's so many things out there online. It all just, it's just a scam. I can't afford anything. Wow. I mean, that probably has you feeling a little bit stressed about this, or maybe just it probably has you feeling maybe a little bit overwhelmed. You have to get into how they feel about the situation, because once you can tap into those emotions on how they feel, it's going to automatically make them want to make a change. If you just stay surface and you don't get into how they feel about something, about how they feel about all of this in the first place, you've already lost a huge piece of the battle. So that's the first thing. We can go back to any of this. All right, number 2. So let's unhighlight this. Questions force a two-way conversation, obviously. Questions make people feel like they're part of the process as opposed to listening to some boring sales pitch. When they answer your questions and you actively listen by asking additional questions, right? That's active listening, not just hearing what they say, but you're asking why questions to go deeper in the conversation. Not only will you gain a deeper understanding, but their customer will actually feel heard. They'll feel that their concerns are respected and validated by you. So we're asking why questions. Like if we ask them a question about, do you like this? That's a yes or no question. Why do you like it? Now they get to talk, right? They get to share why something is important to them. And a lot of times I think people are feeling uncomfortable about asking why questions, but it's actually really important. You want your customers to feel validated and respected. Okay. We're just going to highlight these a little bit and then we'll go back to them. All right. So questions help people sell themselves. When they answer your questions, that will help them feel the emotion of their situation, right? And when they feel the emotion, because people buy off emotion and they justify with logic, once they feel the emotion, they are more likely to now take action today rather than needing to think about it. If you don't tap into the true emotion of how their current situation is making them feel, they will want to think about it because you're still in their logic. If you do it the right way, you automatically remove all the sales pressure, right? There's no need to try to persuade someone into buying anything and having to default to you have a 2-week grace to think it over, right? Because we all know that that's going to automatically, most likely, lead to more chargebacks. You could literally ask and listen your way into a sale. Okay, let's move on. Questions keep you in control. And do not confuse control with manipulation. We're not trying to manipulate anybody here, but we are trying to keep them on the right path and not let your customers take you into left field and right field into random 30-minute conversations that have nothing to do with what you're trying to accomplish, right? That's actually the worst type of rapport building, when all of a sudden you're 30 minutes into talking about your favorite restaurant and what you did last weekend with your kids and the baseball game and all of this. Like when you're building rapport that has nothing to do with what we're trying to accomplish, it actually makes them feel more comfortable to tell you no, or to tell you that I want to think about it, because now you're friends and there's no real motivation for why they need to do anything with you. So you can be friendly by acknowledging what they're saying and then steering them right back on the path. Don't let them control you. Okay, so questions change perspective. This is important. When you ask why questions, so throughout the script, we ask a lot of why questions. Why do you feel that way? Because it allows them to look at things from a different perspective. And when they say it out loud, they're actually going to realize themselves why they are procrastinating, right? They're going to tell you how they feel about their current situation. And when you ask them how they feel about something, as opposed to you telling them how you feel about it and them just agreeing with you, you're actually not tapping into their feelings, right? People care about how they feel about something. That's the only thing that's going to make them change, right? Not how you feel about it. So, for example, I think it was Andre actually that I texted him the other day and said, sorry, one sec. Yeah, Andre, if you want to jump off, you can. This is optional. I know there's a lot of transfers coming through.
I want to stay here.
Totally fine.
No, I want to stay here. That's why I asked you if you think they should pause. I was just letting you know. I don't know if you saw
not all of us are here, but there's probably a good handful. I could tell them.
I think this is actually very important. That's why I said, do you want, I just wanted to bring it to your attention.
Yeah, no worries. Okay.
I actually have a bunch of questions after your training.
Yeah, no worries.
So that's why I jumped on here.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. So when they answer your questions about how they feel about something, right, as opposed to you telling them, they're telling themselves, right? Which is 10 times more powerful in motivating change because they allow us to get to the true emotion so we can get to how they feel about the situation, which will make them want to change with you. Because nobody else, I'm telling you, nobody else in this industry is doing what we're doing, right? Everyone is doing the same thing, which is why 90% of insurance agents fail in their first year. Okay, questions reveal consequences, right? Asking consequence questions at the right time, right? You don't want to ask consequence questions too often. We have one consequence question in our discovery section, which is, have you happened to, think about what would happen if you didn't do anything at all? Because we have to get people to tell themselves out loud what would happen to their family if they did nothing. What might happen if they don't move forward? How will their family be affected if they're left with nothing? You can bring this type of stuff up at the end as well if you have to. Consequence questions are very, very powerful. Okay, now here's one of my favorite sections right here, even though they're all very good. Questions like, how's the weather? How often do you see your kids? How long have you lived in Chicago? You do that too early in the conversation in the first 30 seconds to a few minutes. Believe it or not, it actually, in most cases, will do the opposite of what you're trying to accomplish because every other salesperson that calls them are asking the same questions. And they know you don't care. They really don't. They don't think that it's genuine, right? So that's also what, in my opinion, what I think is also that Charlie Brown syndrome that we talked about before, that wah. Yeah, I know you're just asking me this because you have to, and you're going to try to get me to like you. It doesn't work anymore, right? It's everybody's doing the same thing. So the only types of questions that build true rapport are the ones that get them to talk about themselves in a deeper way, about their situation, why they're in it right now, what's motivating them to potentially look at making a change, and what will happen if they don't. And how does all that make them feel? When you ask those questions about themselves, it will actually show them that you care way more about them than asking them about the weather. Where I think it's appropriate to bring up these questions is after you've earned the right to share, because these are actually very personal questions, right? When someone I don't know asks me questions about the kids, my kids or my grandkids, right? When I'm role playing, or how's the weather? I tune it out. I'm like, okay, this is a waste of time. Just get to what we're talking about. And more people that you're going to be speaking to as we get older are going to be in this same mentality. So it's really important you start getting used to it now. And you'll find that when you're at the end, right when you're at the end and you're pulling up your e-app and there's some dead time there because maybe it's timed out and you have to log back in and you're like, let me confirm this. And there's like dead space. Now would be a really, really great time to bring that stuff up. Hey, so I know that Robert's going to be your beneficiary. How far away does he live from you? Do you get to see him often? How do you have any grandkids? Now you've earned the right to talk about that kind of stuff. And they will feel more open to really share it with you because you are already the expert, right? They're already looking at you different than everyone else. Now you can talk about it. That's really when it works and when it actually it means more. All right, last one. Skilled questions build true rapport. Are people more concerned about themselves and their story, or are they more concerned about you and your story? This is one I actually want you to answer.
I'm just more concerned about me.
Exactly. They are more so. Save your story till later on in the conversation. If you have something you can relate to early on while we're asking questions, it's very awkward. I've heard it many, many times. The way that it's delivered is you're like, yeah, I can certainly understand that. I have this XYZ story. And then they don't really respond to you or engage with you because it's a weird time to share it. So then there's silence and then you just go on to the next question, right? It doesn't work. So again, sharing your story is also only going to be appropriate after you've earned the right to do so towards the end. That's going to be appropriate. Right now, we really need to focus in the beginning on them and their story, letting them share with us, how they feel, why they're in this situation, what they want to do to make a change. Why do they want to make a change? That will automatically build rapport and create value in who you are and what you represent. Right now, your prospects will feel a true connection to you because of how much you understand them from listening to their answers. The other mistake that some people make in rapport building is feeling like they need to be the hero too early on. And I know this happens all the time. I'm going to give you one example. Yesterday, I was doing a role play with someone, and I had responded to a question that he had asked me. And one of the things I volunteered information on was that I was on a fixed income and I didn't know, I could afford it. I think it was, I'd been looking for 2 or 3 months. I didn't find everything because everything seems too expensive. The person responded with, how do you mean by expensive? And I said, well, everything, it's like $200 a month and I'm living on a fixed income. I can't afford any of that. Instead of just taking that answer down, writing it down and saving it for later when we talk about who we are and what we specialize in, a big mistake you're going to make is by responding to that right now. Oh, don't worry about that. Lincoln Heritage has been in business for 58 years and we specialize working with people who are on a fixed income, and we have programs that fit everybody's budget, and our programs start at this price per month. And I know that we can find something for you. When now I'm talking, who am I making this part of my response about now? When I'm saying we, we've been in business for this long.
About the company.
Say that again.
Making it about you and your company.
Making it about me. I want to be the hero now because I want you to see how great I am. But I've just completely taken away the attention off of the customer and I've put it on me. We're not there yet. You just take the information. Yeah, I can understand why you would feel that way. That makes a lot of sense. You move on to the next question. It absolutely does. And people make the mistake all the time because it makes them feel like, oh, I have the answer to that. I'm going to tell you what that is right now. Same with when someone asks you too early on in the conversation, is this term or whole life? Right? Or they try to ask you questions. Well, that's a great question. We're going to get to that in a few minutes. At this point, I don't even know if what we can do, can even help you yet. It might be more appropriate if I were able to ask you just a few questions so I can get a better understanding of your current situation, right? And see if we can even help you in the first place. Would that be okay? Okay, we have to lower their walls. We will get there. We don't have to, play the reaction game. That's when it's going to get you into trouble and box you into a corner. I want to end with an example recap, and then we'll open it up for just free talking. So you've just found out you're on the phone with someone named Gloria. She's 71, has no insurance. Her husband passed away 2 years ago. She doesn't want her kids to go through the same situation again because they struggled when he passed. She had insurance while working, lost it at retirement at 68, has been looking at it off and on ever since. Her son, Robert, will handle the final arrangements, and she wants cremation because it's less expensive. Somebody give me a recap on how you would recap that information to the customer before we move on. This is going to be really important that you understand why I'm doing this. Anyone volunteer? Come on, guys. This isn't hard.
Okay, so let's recap. So you don't have any insurance right now. So you've been, without insurance for, about 3 years since you lost that retirement, and you've been looking for it, on and off for a few years. And since your husband passed away 2 years ago, you don't want your son, Robert, to go through the same thing. And you want to make sure, that all the arrangements are taken care of ahead of time. I imagine it's caused you, a little bit of stress. Is that right?
Yes, it's caused me a lot of stress.
So what we're going to do now is go over, what we do. And it's very important.
Pause there. So that's good. I was waiting for you to give me a feeling recap. You could have done that a couple of more places to make it more powerful, because if you stay surface the whole time, it's going to be surface. Who else wants to try? Inserting a couple more feeling restatement caps. The only way you're going to learn is if you practice.
Okay, Gloria. So we talked about the fact that you don't have any insurance, and that's scaring you right now because your husband, when he passed away 2 years ago, there was nothing in place, and your kids went through a really rough time, and you felt really, you didn't feel good for them. So we want to make sure that Robert doesn't have to go through the same thing with you. We want to be able to pay for your cremation and make it super easy on him. Because you haven't had insurance for the last 2 years. It's not getting any cheaper, and it's just time to get it going now, huh?
Okay, a little softer.
I am not soft.
I know that's always been our conversation, John. But good, you're using feeling words, which is good. But slow down a little bit in the recap. And especially when you're talking about the feeling word, you want to slow down a little bit. Who else wants to try?
I'll try again.
No. Someone else. One more person, and then I will say it how I would say it. Come on, guys. Stephen, Christy, April, Andre, Carlos.
All right, I'll give it a shot.
Thank you.
Okay, Gloria, let me just see if I understand this correctly. I just want to summarize your need for life insurance. You want to protect your, Robert, and find a policy basically that, will help you with your cremation. You've dealt with a lot of emotions, and it was, a hard time for you when your husband passed away approximately 2 years ago. So you really want to just prevent that from happening again, because your kids really had a hard time with it as well. And it's been kind of weighing on you a little bit, the fact that you don't have any insurance right now. So you just want a plan in place to really just protect everyone and be able to get that cremation at an affordable price, because the reason that you want to go with cremation is because it's a little bit less expensive. So you just want to try and keep that down on your fixed budget at that time. Do I have that right, or did I miss anything with that?
No, you got it right. Good. So good, because a lot of the recaps that I've been hearing have no emotion in them, like zero. So I'm going to give it a shot on typically what I would say, so you can hear how I insert like the stress buttons, and feel free to use iterations of it. Not everything is going to be exactly the same. So, okay, Gloria, I'm just going to recap what we went over today, make sure I understand everything. So, of course, you're currently without insurance. You had it while you were working, but you've lost it since retirement. So you've been without for roughly 3-4 years now. It's probably caused you a little bit of stress. And while you're looking at it during your search, there's a lot of misinformation out there. Things aren't what they seem to be. And it's probably also caused you to feel confused and frustrated, like there's no solution out there and no one there to help you. At the same time, you just lost your husband a couple years ago, and you saw what happened with your kids having to struggle to come out of pocket to pay for those expenses. And the last thing you want to do is put your kids through that again, especially Robert, since he's the oldest, of all your kids. I know that you want to look to cover the cost of cremation because it's less expensive. But when all of this is taken care of, your ultimate goal is to have peace of mind that your family's taken care of. Gloria, does it sound like I got all that right?
Yes.
Okay, so when you recap in a way that not just goes over facts, but hits feeling points about what it feels like to have not had coverage for a few years, what it feels like to her and her kids, watching them have to go through, the frustration of planning and paying for a funeral, what she wants to feel like when she has it taken care of. And I'm recapping all that to her, so that way she feels comfortable with me now moving forward, right? Because who am I making this whole thing about? It's still about her.
Mm-hmm.
Once I've recapped that, she shared her story with me. I've repeated it back to her. We've talked about feelings. Now I truly have permission to engage on what we do. Now we can talk about who we are and interweave everything throughout. So I'll stop this sharing for a moment. I can send this that document out to everyone so you can kind of refer back to it. But let's open it up for questions and conversation.
Question.
Sure.
How would you interweave the information she gives in the beginning of your pitch? Just like an example.
Can you give me some information?
Like she says, okay, I want to do a cremation. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you would tie, like anything else you would say that's not in the script, maybe to kind of like tie in more?
In
like
the recap? In the recap? Well,
just throughout the pitch, like when you're explaining like what we do and Lincoln Heritage.
Because it doesn't matter at that point. At that point, we've really done all the emotions. The only other thing I probably would have added is if, like, especially when I have people from Hawaii, it's really important to them that their ashes are spread in the ocean for the most part. Like, that seems to be an important thing. So I'll definitely say in my recap, it's important to you that you put something in place so that, Robert has the funds available to create, to carry out your final wishes and have your ashes spread in Puapua Ocean, where you said that your husband is, and to be with him. And that will relieve a lot of stress and give you peace of mind that you'll be with him, because your son will have the ability to carry that out for you. Right. So that's when it's really the most important time to recap that. I'm really not talking about that again until I get to how much we can charge for cremation, right? Because it's it doesn't matter at that point. You really don't need to. Who else?
Hey, Dana, how do you overcome somebody who's just, I don't know, maybe they're in a bad mood, like, why are you asking me all these questions?
Did you listen to the recording I sent out the other day?
I guess not.
So I specifically sent a recording out last week, I think it was,
Okay.
with that exact person who said, why are you asking me all these questions? I am not a talker. Let's just move on. So go back to the email and listen to that, because I specifically sent it because I know people get that. So I take it away. I will not give into it. And if I lose them, then I lose them. But a lot of times, if people are like that because they don't want to talk to a salesperson, they don't want to be sold. They just want the price. So that's okay. I don't even know if what I can do can even help you yet, Carlos, right? It might be more appropriate if I asked you a few questions first. Well, what's your price? Okay. Here's the problem, Carlos, with asking just for a price. How long have you been doing this search for?
A couple months.
Okay, a couple months. Have you talked to anybody yet?
Of course.
Has anybody taken the time to explain to you the difference between all the different types of life insurance out there, or are you just bullying people into giving you a price?
That's my experience. I want the price. I'll decide.
Okay. So what happens if somebody gives you a price, the cheapest price out there, and then come to find out that policy is not actually even going to be there for your family when you pass away, and you just threw all that money in the trash can? Then what?
Then I'll be under the ground. It doesn't matter.
So my recommendation, Carlos, is in order for you to make the right decision, you need to be empowered with information, right? Whether that's with me or with somebody else, it's really important to understand the type of insurance that you're getting quotes for, because at the end of the day, you're doing this to protect your family, correct?
Right.
So what good is it going to do if you get a cheap policy that cancels in 5 years from now? What good is it going to do if you get a cheap policy that goes from $29 to $350 in 3 years? How is that going to help you?
Okay.
Right. So I mean, you have to ask them questions that's going to get them to stop in their tracks, so that they realize, okay, maybe I do need to take a minute and understand. And I'll say, look, it doesn't even have to be with me. Whether it's with me or with anyone else, you got to talk to someone. You have to understand, because if you just go for cheap, you're going to lose.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Just to add, I used that. I had a lady this morning that I got on the phone, and she was complaining about the questions. So I just followed the script and used the, I apologize, I offended you, and not sure if we were able to help you out. It actually worked like a charm. She backed off and ended up closing the sale this morning. So
that's awesome. Thank you for telling me that. Because I think everybody on this call needs to hear things like that, right? Like, not just making things up. We're just trying to lower people's walls, because automatically we are a used car salesman when we get on the phone. That's what everybody thinks about us from the minute we start talking. So we have to disarm them. We have to be different. Who else has some questions?
I just want to add one more thing about the whole script itself. So those that don't know, Dana and I have been going back and forth with the script, and me trying to make certain alterations to it. And I'll be honest, the times that I've used it, sometimes you're going to let the customer dictate things and take control, and that's kind of when we've lost, but when we're able to stay on point and stay on track, it definitely works like a charm. And just going back to the customer that I had this morning, when I was able to get past that whole "why are you asking me all the questions" things, she just totally opened up. And now when I was asking the questions, what do you mean by that? How does that make you feel? The conversation went so great. And I, sometimes we prejudge in our minds saying, hey, she's not going to buy, or she's going to be resistant or whatever. But just be patient, and things will start to open up. And
How many
that's what I've been
objections?
finding.
How many objections did you get at the end of that call?
At that one, I wouldn't really call it an objection. It's just
like, did you get I want to think about it. I need 24 hours. I have to talk to my kids. Did you get any objections like that?
The only objection, which I guess I could have taken it wrong at first, was, I won't be able to start this right away.
Oh, that's not an objection. That's easy.
It really wasn't. It really wasn't. It was basically she didn't get paid until the 1st.
Of course.
So so we got past that. But after she opened up, it was pretty good. But
exactly.
Even with most of the sales that I've gotten so far, I've been able to get the objections throughout the presentation and kind of address them a little bit, but able to get past them toward the end.
What you'll find, Andre, is, and I think a lot of the questions that you feel you have to insert in there are coming from a place of maybe a little bit of fear, or maybe a little bit of insecurity, that I really need to address these early on, so that way I don't get them at the end. And the ones that I'm talking about, like Andre will ask a question like, are you capable of making your own decisions? Are you going to need to have, your husband involved, or a child involved, or something like that, very early on in the conversation, in order to try to avoid that at the end. I personally think it's a mistake. I think it's too pointed and too direct and creates sales resistance. If you do this the right way, you won't even really need to ask that, because it'll just automatically fall into place for you at the end. And we can get you from a 30% close rate to an 80% close rate just by asking the right questions at the right time, not feeling like you have to ask those types of pointed questions that you're not going to feel like you need to do that anymore, is the point.
Yeah. I wouldn't call it fear. I would definitely call it more of a time management thing, not investing, an hour with a customer and then getting hit with something. But no, I agree with you 100%. And I agreed, when we had our back and forth conversation, I definitely agreed with you.
And I like that you challenge, you challenge me, I'm
always going to do that, but
I always welcome that. And I don't ever take that as defiance or anything like that. Like, you do you, and hopefully what we teach will help you just get better. And I'm not trying to create like little mini Dana robots here, right? Like, what we're trying to do is for you to stay authentic to who you are. If some of the words I'm using don't feel like there's something you would say, change the words, right? I mean, it's all about, like, the whole goal of what we're trying to do here is to make people feel like we actually care about what their goals are and why they feel that way. Mila.
Not necessarily for you, Dana, but for everybody else, because you're so good. And so does anybody else experience that, like, there's some customers that you just don't really feel like you should ask the questions to because they just don't seem like people that would be receptive to that? Or do you guys try every single time to ask them these really intense emotional questions? Anybody that wants to answer, go ahead.
I can definitely answer that one. So I feel myself sometimes coming off script when I do feel that, and shortcut a little bit. And I definitely have to make a conscious effort not to do that. Because you get some people that, regardless to how much you try to get them to open up, they're just like Stonewall Jackson, and they just don't open up. And I'm like, okay, let me just skip to the dang quote or something.
Let me interrupt here real quick.
But I don't do it.
People, are you going to sell those people anyways? Most likely.
In most cases, you can't sell everybody. But you'd be shocked at how sometimes people will come around. Some people are just like that, and they'll end up buying. So I don't feel like you can come off a script. It's more of our emotions that we change as opposed to the customer, because they are who they are.
I think in my experience, I kind of done the same thing as Andre, but I think it's important to go through the questions, because they need to be able to open up to themselves. I mean, if they're not opening up to you, they're probably not even thinking about it.
Right.
And sometimes I ask the questions and they're like, I haven't really even thought about that myself.
Yeah.
You know, it's like we're asking them for the first time, and then it kind of gets them to open up like, man, I really need this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I really need something for my family because I really don't have nothing. And like when I ask them some of them questions, like, okay, what type of protection you have? They're like, nothing. Okay, what about some sort of safety net, like saving? They're like, nothing. I don't have nothing. So it's like when they say it, they're like, oh snap, I don't have nothing. Like I don't have nothing right now for my family. They're like, okay, I really need insurance. Right. So it kind of like opens up their eyes, and then it kind of like you hear the kind of how they get scared a little bit. Yeah. They're like, I don't have nothing for my kids, you know, or I don't have this. How does that make you feel? Yeah. It's kind of, it can be hard because I know exactly how you feel, because they're like, oh, they're not receptive in the beginning, but I think it's important to try to ask at least, you know, try to get them to open up.
Tap into that emotional side.
Yeah. It also depends on how you deliver the questions too, right? On how they're going to be received and responded to. And I'm going to pick at John again, because just because the way we ask questions is totally different, right? Completely different. And an analogy I thought about last night is if you just think about, because my family and I were watching America's Got Talent, and we were listening to someone sing. When someone sings on stage, whether they're playing an instrument or whether they're just singing a ballad, I mean, when they are so good, right, it is almost hypnotizing music, right? And you just get captured into what they're singing and how they're singing it. And you don't want it to end, right? It can leave goosebumps off people. Songs, the way they're sang, could make people emotional, right? Yeah. You take that same song and you have someone else sing it, like me, I'm a terrible singer. Is it going to be received the same way?
No.
Same exact song, same exact words, same exact background noise, right? Same exact setting, but it is how the song is sung by the artist that will make you feel a certain way. It is the same exact thing with this. You could have the same exact script, the same exact words. If it is not delivered in a way that creates emotion, it won't work.
Right.
Delivery.
You have to work on your tone, your pace, and your delivery. That is the key to 50% of this.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say to add to that was just, and that's what I've changed in the script, is not the phrases, not the words. I'm a New Yorker, right? So I can't sound like, if I'm speaking to someone, and if I if I talk to somebody,
you razz someone.
So and every call I get, you're not from around here, are you? You sound like you're from up north somewhere. So that starts another conversation. But I just changed so I can be me, you know, but still deliver the same message. So it may be the same words, but how I would say it. You know, I don't use certain words because they're not comfortable for me.
Exactly.
So I just changed some of the words, but it's the same message.
And that you should, right? Because you need to sound authentic to yourself. You can't sound like a scripted robot.
Yeah, it was weird for me at first.
And that's okay, right? I can't script how everybody would say something. And so, but you have to really internalize why we're doing it and how we're doing it, so that when you do say it, it feels natural and it's how you would say it.
I think that's when we first started the script, I started getting a lot of that. Why are you asking me that? Why are you asking me all these questions? And kind of like defensive. And it was because I sounded scripted, or my tone wasn't right, or you sound like I felt like an interrogator. Like, why? Why this? Why not? I was like, it's so like confrontational instead of conversational.
It can be. It can be.
Yeah. Well, the way I was saying it was very confrontational. So, but it doesn't have to be. So I started changing like the way I say it, my tone, and kind of like memorize the questions a little more, so it just sounds natural. Like when we did our meeting, you said it should just sound natural. It's the next question that should be asked, so they're not even thinking about it.
Exactly.
I don't even get that anymore. So
I don't know who I talked to about this, but I thought this was a really interesting point to share. First of all, let me preface, because if I post this on YouTube, I don't want anyone coming at me. I have nothing against any of our competitors, Senior Life, FFL, you know, Senior Life Services. They're all great. They all offer great products. But I think some of the way that they train does not set up their agents for success. And one of them I think it was FFL, released a new script on YouTube that, new and revised agent script. I'm going to teach it to you word for word right now, and then I'm going to have you listen to a live sales call so you can hear it in action. And what they are teaching is how to box someone into a corner in the first 5 minutes, meaning, here's what we're doing today, Mr. Customer. By the end of this call, we're either going to make a decision to move forward with an application, or we're going to make a decision to not do it, and we're going to close your file. You agree with that? And I was like, what?
It's an interrogation.
So they're already painting the picture right now that we're either going to do something today or we're not. And if we don't, that's it. We're not calling you anymore. Right. And the comments on this person's video was like, this is fire. This is awesome. I love it. This is the best training ever. And I'll tell you, when you actually put that into action, most people will not like that. And if you do box someone into a corner at the end just to sign up, the chances of them canceling afterwards is going to be significantly higher. You can't box people into a corner, right? You have to make them make decisions because they want to make them. And when you do it the right way, people will automatically want to because they feel like there's no other choice. This is it, right? And I still shock myself every single day when I jump on the phones to take transfers, and I'm closing almost all of them. Like, I don't even understand how it's happening myself, but I know that it works. So, who else has questions or comments or anything at all? Because I do.
I got a lot, but I'll let somebody else go first. This is more about the script.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'd like to hear how you transition the I have protection in place question, because, I want to go by the script, but I feel certain, a few more questions should be asked there.
When it says, can you be more specific?
So, do you have protection in place? And they said, yeah, I have a policy in place. And it goes, well, okay. It sounds like things are going fairly well for you. Is there anything that you would change, Dana, about what you already have in place, if you could? Mm-hmm. And then I think we go to, they say, yes, there's some changes, or no, there's no changes. And so we recap those changes, and that's, and why is that important to you to have, a lower price or a policy that doesn't cancel? But then right after that, we go directly into, and what expenses are you most concerned about your family having to pay for if something were to happen?
Okay. So what other questions do you think would be appropriate to ask there?
I'd be curious about, who it's with.
Okay, but let me ask you a question. Why is that relevant? At this point?
I'll tell you, well, it might not be relevant at this point, but it will be relevant.
Okay, but end. Whether you ask it now or whether you ask it at the end, it's not going to change the direction of your presentation right now. All it might do, well, actually, I don't know. Let me go look to see where it is. And now you're talking about this other company.
Okay. The one question that I would want to know at this point is if they're looking to get additional coverage or if they're intending to replace their policy.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, that's so is there anything you would want to change about what you have in place if you could, is sort of like a different way of asking that, so they can tell you if they want to replace it or if they want additional coverage. What I don't want to do is feed them answers.
Okay.
By saying, do you want to increase? Do you want, I don't want to tell them why they might want to make a change. I want them to tell me.
Okay.
So that's the point of that. If you're not happy or satisfied with the answer they gave you, feel free to continue to probe.
More. Okay.
Yeah. But if they tell you, well, I have a term policy and it's going to cancel in a few years, or if they say, well, I have a $5,000 policy now and I don't think it's enough, or if they say, well, I think I might be paying, like if they give you an answer, don't make the mistake of trying to solve that or respond to that or be the hero about that at that
point.
moment.
Okay.
You got to write it down and save it for later.
Okay. And so then the next question, when you come from that, is, and what expenses are you, and maybe it's just me not grasping the next question.
Okay.
Or why are we going into the next question? So, I'm asking, maybe you can give me some more clarity in it.
Okay.
And what expenses are you most concerned about your family having to pay for if something were to happen to you?
So that's another.
They just told me they had insurance.
Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry if I cut you.
No, that's okay. Because again, I don't want to ask them, do you want to just cover funeral expenses? Do you want to cover a mortgage payment? Like, I don't want to tell them again or make assumptions about what they might want to have their policy pay for. I want them to tell me. So yes, I know they have insurance, but I don't know what they need the insurance for. I know it's for their family, but what exactly are we talking about? And this is also like, if they tell me, well, I have a house I have to pay for and cars I have to pay for, and my, grandkids' college expenses. And if they're saying all these things that I'm really not going to be able to help them with, I can say, okay, that's really interesting. I said, have you thought about, the expenses of a funeral when you pass? Then at that point, I might ask them to see if that's even important to them. Right? Because if it's not important to them, that's going to be a really big challenge to sell this person.
Okay. No, I definitely have a better understanding of the question now. I was asking it, but in my mind, wasn't fully grasping it and understanding it. So
sometimes
I think my delivery will be better.
I think sometimes it helps too to know, because sometimes they'll say, I just want a funeral cost. So when you get to giving them a price, you have to go like, if they're doing cremation, you have to try to quote them 10 grand or 15 grand. I think she has that question when it gets there. Do you just want to cover the cost of your funeral, or do you want to leave something extra behind?
Yeah.
That's at the end.
Yeah. But a lot of them will tell you there too.
Yeah,
I just want to cover funeral, or I just want to, or I even want to leave some money more, behind for my family, whatever it is. It's kind of like get to gauge, exactly what they want.
This is an interesting part that's not in the script, what I'm about to share with you, because if somebody tells me that they already have they want a policy for something large, right? Like mortgage protection. And what a lot of people do at this point, a mistake people make, is saying, oh, we can't, we don't do that. All we do is burial insurance. They're really small policies. I don't think, that's a good fit for you, or just whatever you say, like just telling you that we don't do this, we do this, right? That would be a mistake. What you should do instead is probe by way of asking questions to find out if having a policy to cover final expenses is something that's important to them. So, okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. Have you thought about, by chance, have you thought about maybe having something, in place for a funeral, maybe when you pass away? Is that something that has been on your mind? Kind of, not really, but I said, okay, well, the reason that I ask, is because typically when you're looking for a large policy to cover mortgage, those policies typically last for about 10 or 20 years, because you're really only covering something for a specific amount of time while you're making your payments. Because if something were to happen to you, you'd want to make sure your family's protected and they don't lose a house, right? Right. Okay. So what happens then if you outlive that large policy and now you're 70 and you don't have anything else in place when you pass away and something happens to you and now they need to pay for cremation or burial, whatever that case may be? What happens at that point? And just let them ask you, like answer you. So, because depending on what they say, you'll want to keep asking questions. Does your family have, will they have an extra $5,000 or $6,000 or $10,000 at that point, to come out of pocket and pay for a funeral? I don't know. Okay, well, do you want them to have to pay for that if you didn't have to? So you have to probe and ask questions, because if they don't care, guys, then move on, right? We're not a good fit. We're not going to be a good fit for everyone. We're only going to be a good fit for someone, and this is only going to work for someone that finds value in what we do.
I have a question.
Sure.
So in the beginning, we talk about like why they are interested in getting a policy, like, you know, what expenses are you most concerned about your family paying? And then they obviously say, you know, usually a lot of the time it's just burial or final expenses. And then down a little bit, then like there's a question that's like, so you don't want them to have to pay if you didn't have to or whatever, but it's like they kind of already said that, right? So why exactly are we asking that if they already
they didn't say that. They just said they wanted to cover the cost. They actually physically didn't say that they didn't want someone to have to pay for it and why.
Okay, but what if they did say that prior? Then we would
well
skip
then
that
yes
question.
exactly.
Okay.
Yes, you don't want to ask a question that you already have the answer to.
Sure. Right. Okay.
Of course.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I've had a person when I'm explaining term and whole life, they're like, I'm not gonna live until 80. You know, they're like, oh, I'm gonna pass away in like 4 years because my mom and dad only lasted until 73. How do you handle that?
So
most of the time,
that's
just
good.
say,
Yeah, because I do get that too. And
Yeah.
typically those people are in very poor health, correct? Like they are probably going to be modified.
Well,
in most cases or in no cases.
I think this guy that I sold yesterday, he wasn't in bad health. He got final expense. I think it was him who told me. But I don't know. They just base it off of their parents. They don't base it off of like.
Do you know about their health yet? Have you even gotten that far? Did they tell you that they had? Okay, so you don't really know.
Yeah, so
most of the time, people are going to say that because they are insecure about their health. Right? Their parents passed away young because they were not healthy. So in that case, I would say, yeah, I can understand why you feel that way. And if I don't know about their health right now, I'd say, and that's why term insurance might be really attractive. The problem is that if someone applies for term insurance and they have anything, you know, any sort of health condition, they're not going to get approved for something like that. Because think about it. Why would someone offer you $10,000 for $9.95 a month if you have, you know, if someone has COPD or if they have, you know, a serious health condition that's going to statistically, you know, have them pass away in the next few years? The insurance company isn't going to take that kind of risk. So you're not, you know, people like that aren't going to get approved for term insurance anyways. You know,
that's a good response. I didn't know that.
If you don't know, I do say that all the time.
Okay.
You know, I'll kind of paint the picture that if someone thinks it's attractive, then I'll say, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The problem is for people that have health conditions, they can't get approved for those policies because the insurance company is not going to take the risk to give you such a low payment if you're just going to be more likely to pass away in 5 years.